Listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to True Crime, the podcast that helps you find new, emerging, and undiscovered true crime podcasts. I'm Greg, the host and curator of True Crime. If you like today's episode, make sure to check out the episode description for links to subscribe. Today's episode is from One Nation Under Crime. One Nation Under Crime is a historical, chronological true crime podcast. Join Kayla and Leah each week as they discuss true crime cases and the history from each year, starting with the first recorded murder trial in 1800. Reminding everyone there isn't always liberty and justice for all. All right, let's get this show started.
Begin.
You are listening to One Nation Under Crime, a historical, chronological true crime podcast. Each week, we go through our nation's history and discuss one case from each year, starting in 1800. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
This is, it starts with another sigh this week.
I was going to say, what's up with the sighing, man? I mean, I said my name and you sighed.
Well, you know.
Why are you upset with me? Why don't you like me?
So I've brought you here today to discuss your future with the podcast. Just kidding.
Uncool. Uncool.
I've done your performance review. And
it's fabulous.
So
5-star review.
Right at the top, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know.
This is not Leah's last day.
It's not Leah's last day. However,
let's just get that over with.
There will be some themes in this episode that you may not feel comfortable with listening with children under a certain age.
Oh, little ears.
Little ears. If this is a conversation you would like to have with them, by all means, do you. I don't care. However, just FYI, once we get into the story, there will be heavy conversations that some people may not be ready to have.
I need to know more about what kind of heavy conversations.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Oh,
let's talk about you and me.
Let's talk about.
Anyways. So, yes, that is a main theme of the week.
Birds and bees.
We are not taking a deep dive, really. We did discuss terminology around sex work before. We will discuss like brothels and such in this episode. And our case does take place in a brothel. So it's unavoidable conversation that needs to be had. So if that's not I just want people to know in case
don't
they
want to
have.
Put yourself in a situation that you have to have a conversation that you're not
exactly
ready to have.
So, anyways, we'll just we got to go. All right.
You took me back to Pitch Perfect.
I know.
Right there. I mean, you really did. I had that soundtrack and I love it.
Pitch Perfect.
I love it, love it, love it.
All right.
Totally have a toner for him.
I know. Our sources for this week, we have, and this is going to tell you exactly who our case is about, the Helen Jewett murder, violence, gender, and sexual licentiousness in Antebellum America.
Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm. It was very, very in-depth. And the woman who wrote it, I believe it's Patty Klein. Anyway, she did a fantastic job. And then my NSA agent's favorite, Murder by Gaslight. So we're going to get to our events in 1836, January 5th. Davy Crockett arrived in Nacogdoches, Texas, to help with the Texas Revolution. February 5th, Henry Rowe Campbell built the first 440, a steam locomotive type that will soon become the most common on all railroads of the United States. February 23rd, the Battle of the Alamo began, and the Alamo was under attack for 13 days until March 6th. 1,500 to 3,000 Mexican soldiers under General Santa Anna killed 182 to 257, the number is not quite known, Texans, including, William Travis, Jim Bowie, and Davy Crockett.
I was going to say that I knew Bowie was in there.
He's got a mean tackle, though. We know that after last week's episode.
Especially after Stonewall done hit him with a cane.
Oh, gosh. February 25th, Samuel Colt patented the first multi-shot revolving cylinder revolver.
I know that's going to be a gun.
Which enabled the firearm to be fired multiple times without reloading. He manufactured the first .34 caliber pistol on March 5th of that year, and it was specifically named the Texas model. Which is just interesting, Texas model. March 2nd, the Republic of Texas declared independence from Mexico in Colombia. March 16th. Next one's the 27th. March 16th, the Constitution of the Republic of Texas was approved and legalized slavery. Because why not?
Legalized?
Yep.
After we've already got a movement.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways. March 27th. Now we're to a 20. The first Mormon temple was dedicated in Kirtland, Ohio. April 20th, the territory of Wisconsin was created. May 4th, the ancient order of Hibernians.
Of what?
Yeah, it's an Irish Catholic fraternal organization, and it was founded in New York City.
Okay, then.
June 15th, Arkansas officially became the 25th state in the United States.
Halfway done.
Welcome, Arkansas.
Welcome.
July 1st, President Andrew Jackson announced to Congress a request by James Smithson of 100,000 gold sovereigns, which was to found the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C.
Very, very good institution. Yes. That's one place I'm okay with Bones going.
Yes. July 11th, President Andrew Jackson issues the I don't know how to say specie circular.
He was not assassinated.
No. And it was an executive order which required payment for government land to be specifically done in gold and silver.
Meaning you can't just give me a check or an IOU. Well, it means you got to give me the money, honey.
Well, which began the failure of land speculation economy that would lead to the Panic of 1837.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that wasn't good.
July 13th.
Was it a Friday?
I don't know.
Okay.
The first U.S. patent, number 1, was done for locomotive wheels after 9,957 unnumbered patents. They officially started numbering the patents. So this was number 1, but there were 9,957 patents issued before this.
How did they keep track of them?
I guess that's why they decided to do that. I don't know. Well, it was just funny.
What kind of goobers were running the show before that?
No comment.
I mean, seriously. I mean, how did they keep track of
I guess
things?
I have this piece of paper. That's it.
I mean, was it alphabetical? How did...
I don't know.
Stars.
July 30th, the first English language newspaper was published in Hawaii.
How they eat.
September 1st.
I've never been there. I want to go.
I've never been there. I don't know if I have a big desire to go, but
I want to go once.
I don't know.
My friend used to live there.
I don't know.
Her mom still does.
September 1st. Narcissa Whitman arrived.
That's Malfoy's mom's name.
Narcissa?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. She arrived in Walla Walla, Washington.
That's such a fun...
I know.
Say it again.
Walla Walla, Washington. And she was one of the first white... Why they had to put this, I don't know. But she was apparently one of the first white women to settle west of the Rocky Mountains. So...
That was a big deal to get...
I mean, there's that.
Somebody out there...
September 25th, Sam Houston was elected as president of the Republic of Texas. I wonder where Houston comes from.
Mm-hmm.
September 9th. This was a bear to figure out how to explain. Ralph Waldo Emerson published his influential essay, Nature, in the United States, outlining his beliefs in transcendentalism. Do you know what transcendentalism is?
Transcendental. Go there. I was thinking of George Strait lyrics.
So,
go ahead.
Transcendentalism,
explain it,
is a philosophy that spirituality cannot be achieved through reason and rationalism, but through self-reflection and intuition. Essentially, transcendentalists believe spirituality isn't something you can explain, it's something that you feel. Some beliefs are that humans are all inherently good, society and its institutions, such as organized religion and politics, are corrupt, and humans should strive to be independent and self-reliant. Spirituality should come from the self and not an organized religion. Insight and experience are more important than logic, and nature is beautiful, and it should be appreciated, and it should not be altered by humans. Essentially, we're saying he was a tree hugger. Let me tell you guys, it was not easy to figure out how to explain what this was, because nowhere did it have any good explanation. The explanation was terrible, and I couldn't figure out what it was meaning. So anyways, I had to sort through it. That's essentially what it means.
Well, the only reference that I had was George Strait's "All My Exes Live in Texas," and the line, "By transcendental meditation, I go there each night."
Yeah.
And so the only thing I think of, I was thinking meditation.
Oh, so that would mean
enlightenment.
That he would mean by spiritual, because they believed in feeling and spirituality.
Exactly. I was like, meditation. That's the only thing that I could think of. So there you go. Thank you, George Strait.
October 12th,
You didn't give me much on that. George Strait's awesome.
There's that. Yes.
Okay.
October 12th, 18 inches of snow fell in Bridgewater, New York. October 15th, Alexander Twilight became the first. It says specifically African American. So that's what I went with.
Okay.
He became the first African American elected to public office in the Vermont House of Representatives.
Okay.
His name was Alexander Twilight, and I just like that. I think it's
fun.
I
like that name. I wish we had some snow here.
No thanks. October 24th.
I'm going to be traveling to Maryland, by the way.
True.
I will be.
True.
No, I will have already been to Maryland last week.
It's too much to think right now.
I know. It's late.
But yes, you will be going to the place where snow is.
Hopefully there will be snow. Okay, continue.
October 24th, the American patent for a phosphorus friction match was filed by...
That's a lot of F's.
I know. Was filed by Alonzo Dwight Phillips of Springfield, Massachusetts. So essentially matches. Here you go.
Yeah.
December 4th, the Whig Party held its first national convention in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. December 7th, Martin Van Buren was elected as the 8th President of the United States. December 14th, the Toledo War unofficially ended, which was a result of a boundary dispute between Ohio and Michigan. The resolution was passed, and the resolution was called the Frostbitten Convention. Yeah.
So there was a war between two states?
Yes. It was a boundary dispute between Michigan and Ohio.
And it was a full-on war?
The Toledo War.
Interesting.
So, yes, we had a U.S. patent office, but on December 15th, it burned down. So that one.
So who cares if it was numbered?
Oh, gosh. December 20th, a sudden freeze killed many travelers in Illinois.
Ugh.
I know. December 23rd, the Georgia Female College, now known as Wesleyan College, was chartered in Macon, Georgia, as the first college for women in the United States.
Nice.
I know. Gotta love it. Undated events in 1836, we have the American Temperance Union, which was established. Lee'll know what these are. The first McGuffey readers were published.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, it's like little reader. Like a lot of homeschool parents still use them today, but a lot of kids will have them in their rooms. Anyways, I remember McGuffey readers.
It's what you learn to read from.
And the first, oh gosh, this is another one. Okay. The first printed literature in Assyrian Neo-Aramaic, was published by Justin Perkins, who was an American Presbyterian missionary.
Oh.
Our births in 1836, January 10th, we have Charles Ingalls. He was settler and father of Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Oh, did you love those books?
No, they were okay. He was a Capricorn.
Wait a minute. Hold the phone.
I mean, they're fine. It just wasn't it wasn't my cup of tea. But I mean, I read all of them. They were good. But I wouldn't go back and read them now.
Oh, you make me so sad. Like,
that's my job on this earth.
Oh.
Have you not figured that out? Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's not kind. I had one of the teachers that taught my mom.
It's also not surprising that would be your favorite book series.
Oh my! Well, it's not my favorite book series, but I loved those books. One of the teachers that taught with Mom, she called me Half Pint, and I have been told by more than one person that I remind them of Melissa Gilbert. Especially from when she was on Little House on the Prairie. So,
does it really surprise you though that I would not like something that's like known to be inherently like
little girl loved her dad and I mean it's like her hero,
like,
and I am my daddy's my hero still, and I'm 42 years old.
I mean, I'm dead inside. So
you are not dead inside. But I mean, I will say, I mean, Laura and her pa, the worst thing in the world was disappointing her dad. And still at 42 years old, that is one of the worst things for me, is for my daddy to be disappointed with me. And
Do you know what makes that easier?
What?
Not having one.
You're so bad, Kayla.
You know I'm dark. So, I mean,
I know.
For those who haven't caught up on all the episodes, my dad died when I was really young. It's fine. I joke about it to hide my feelings, but yes I have very dark humor. So,
I was afraid that's what you were going to say. That's
I looked at her with a little grin.
I was so afraid that's what you were going to say. But
anyway,
I mean, really, like,
that's
like the sigh. Like, there's a sigh that Daddy does, and like the. Well, baby. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And I'm 42 years old. I'm a grown woman. But y'all
can't. Anyways.
Look, I'm just saying. I mean, I'm a grown woman, and like I can still make my decisions and all, but I really want my daddy to be proud of me and be happy with me.
Not shocking.
So, yeah. Anyway, love the books. Love.
They were good books. They were good books. I just, they were okay. Anyways.
I would love to go see like the museum and stuff and everything.
See, I'm good.
Oh, I would love it.
Anyways.
I still love you.
I mean, I still love you too. But I'd rather go to Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum and
do you want me to come over there and give you a big hug?
No. Oh,
then stop talking about that. Move on.
January 10th, like I said, Charles Ingalls. He was a Capricorn. Anyways. February 9th, Franklin Benjamin Gowan. He was the president of the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad. Do you know how hard it was for me to type Reading Railroad instead of Reading Rainbow?
Reading Rainbow.
It took, I was like, it in my mind, it was not.
In the sky.
It was not.
I can go twice as high.
Are you done?
I was just being your background. I was being your background as you were talking. Can I not be your background music?
No. Leah's 2 glasses deep at this point, guys.
Shut your face, heifer. You ain't got to go telling all my business.
It's all right. I mean,
I'm your background music. I have a beautiful voice.
It is
Some
beautiful.
might say angelic.
Some probably would.
I'm going to kick you in your teeth.
February 9th, Franklin Benjamin Gowan. He was the president of the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad. And he is identified with the undercover infiltration of the Molly Maguire's mine workers, the saloon keepers, and low-level local political figures. He arranged and tried for multiple acts of violence. These groups. Yes, this is so confusing. All of those people were tried for multiple acts of violence, including murders and attempted murders of coal mine operators, foremen and workers, and peace officers. And he was actually murdered. So he is going to be a case later.
Dun.
He was an Aquarius. February 24th, we have Winslow Homer. He was an
What a
American.
name.
I know. He was an American painter and printmaker, and he was one of the foremost painters in the 19th century. And he is a major figure in American art.
Did his paints make him go a little nutso?
I don't know, but that ties back to that show I've been watching. Anyways, he is a Pisces. May 27th, Jason Gould was an American railroad magnate and financial speculator who is generally, it looked like spectator when I went to read it.
I wonder why you drew that out.
I was like, oh.
that. Speculator.
He is generally identified as one of the robber barons. And that was apparently a derogatory term applied to those who had a certain amount of wealth. It was, anyways. His
Maybe how they got their wealth.
Yeah. His sharp,
kind of like the carpetbaggers, maybe like after the Civil War.
Maybe so. I think I don't.
Probably.
His sharp and often unscrupulous business practices made him one of the wealthiest men of the late 19th century. Gould was an unpopular figure during his life and remains controversial to this day. He's a Gemini.
Sounds like a great guy.
I mean, solid. August 16th. John Pierce was an American professor of chemistry and inventor who participated in the development of the telephone. He's a Leo. August 25th, Bret Harte was an American short story writer and poet, best remembered for short fiction featuring miners, gamblers, and other romantic figures of the California Gold Rush era. He's a Virgo.
Like me.
And November 8th.
She's looking at me with that look, guys.
A man who everyone will know simply by his name alone. Whose name is everywhere. Especially if you were in a certain section of the store. Milton Bradley. He was an American business magnate, game pioneer, and publisher. He is the one who launched the board game industry. He's a Scorpio.
Is he responsible for Monopoly?
I know Monopoly was a Milton Bradley. I don't know if he's responsible for it.
That is my least
The first
favorite
game that they made was kind of like checkers, but not really.
Okay, checkers is okay. I hate Monopoly with a passion.
For those who are weird like me, I don't think it's Milton Bradley that makes a Ouija board. I don't remember who it is, but I don't think that it's them.
I think that's Parker Brothers.
I think it's Parker Brothers. But anyways, our deaths in 1836, January 30th, Betsy Ross.
Oh,
I put flag maker, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps.
Who knows? March 16th.
Supposedly.
Yeah, allegedly. March 16th, Nathaniel, I got to say this very clearly, Bowditch.
Oh, yes. Good job on the diction.
Yes. He was a mathematician and credited as the founder of marine navigation.
Oh, interesting.
June 28th, James Madison, the fourth president of the United States, died. And September 14th, Aaron Burr, the third vice president of the United States.
Who did not die in a duel.
And murderer of Alexander Hamilton. You will never convince me otherwise.
Well, I mean, he did kill him.
You need to. anyways.
I mean, who would try to convince you otherwise?
I'm
He's
just
the
saying.
one that shot him.
Just making sure everyone's aware. So now we're getting into our case for this week, and you will kind of see the direction that our case is going. So on April 10th of 1836, Helen Jewett was found in her bed, brutally murdered, and a man who was a frequent visitor of hers named Richard P. Robinson immediately became the main suspect. The murder trial following the investigation is known as one of the first sex scandals to receive detailed press reporting, with the most notable being the New York Herald,
Ooh,
who we discussed last week.
that's big news.
Our case this week takes place in New York City, and we have covered it a couple of times in different cases. So we are taking a different route for this portion of the episode this week.
Quick question. Do we think that the New York Herald covered it in order to gain notoriety because it was a new paper?
We'll see. I don't think so.
Okay.
There's something, it'll come up.
Okay. I was just curious.
We'll get back to we'll get back to them.
Okay.
Because a lot of people will see that the title of this episode is called The Girl in Green, aka Helen Jewett. In the newspapers, they were calling her the Girl in Green. We'll get to why.
Okay.
But that was a name that the newspapers gave her.
Well, I mean, you have to have a catchy title, something to grab.
It's more. Anyways, so back in episode 25 titled The Sheriff's Mistress, we discussed terminology and why the term prostitute has been changed to sex worker. We went into that extensively. You will see in this case that sex work is a major theme and arguably the cause of the murder. So we are going to go into a brief discussion of kind of what the world of sex work was like at this time. We're not going into like incredible deep detail, but we're going to talk about kind of what was going on. How popular was this? And a couple of interesting things that I didn't know and you'll be shocked by. It's fun facts, if you will. Maybe.
Fun facts about murder.
About sex work. Anyways.
About sex work.
Yeah.
And murder.
So.
Even better.
So we're not only going to get into the legality of it, but also the types and locations. In the 19th century, it was known that a parlor house brothel catered to an upper class clientele, while a bawdy house had a lower class clientele. There were also concert saloons where men could eat, listen to live music, watch a fight, or they could be catered to by a lovely woman in one of the upstairs rooms. We've seen it.
They had it all.
I know, right? One-stop shop. In Lower Manhattan alone, just Lower Manhattan, there were over 200 brothels. 200. And yes, sex work was illegal under the vagrancy laws, but seeing as the police and city officials were also some of the clients, and they were also bribed by the brothel owners, enforcement was limited. The argument was that regulating sex work would be in opposition to the public good. All right. Then the gold rush began. And from the 1840s to 1900, the mining towns attracted gambling saloons and brothels. The Lorette Ordinance.
Lorette.
This cracks me up. So it's the Lorette Ordinance of 1857. And it prohibited sex work from being offered on the first floor of buildings in New Orleans, just the first floor, which was interesting because when I mentioned that to my boyfriend, he was like, yeah, that's why a lot of them, when you go like to areas like that, where that's kind of like a prominent thing, like, I don't think the term is strip clubs anymore, but in areas like that where there's multiple floors, he said, yeah, that's why it's on the second floor a lot of times, why you have to go up the stairs.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was like, all right.
How do you know that, sir?
Well, he was saying that it made a lot of sense based off of that, because he was like, well, that makes perfect sense. That's why, you see those in different places and they're on the second floor. I was like, actually, that makes sense.
Well, there you go.
So, let's see.
The more you know.
Yes. But even with increasing regulation, sex work continued to gain momentum. And in 1858, it is estimated it circulated $6.3 million.
Ooh, that's a lot of cheddar.
Which was more than the shipping and brewing industry combined.
Whoa.
Yeah. Then during the Civil War, Army officers encouraged the presence of sex workers to keep morale high among the troops.
Hello, hookers. That's where the term hookers came from.
Right. So because of this, U.S. military commander Brigadier General Robert S. Granger legalized sex work in Nashville, Tennessee, to try and curb venereal disease among Union soldiers.
Nice.
It actually worked.
Huh.
And the VD, which is venereal disease, if anybody doesn't know, the VD rate fell. Some people don't know. Just saying.
It makes me think of Friends.
I know. I can't say it every single time. So, anyways, the rate fell from around 40% to 4%.
Nice.
Due to the legalization, all sex workers had to register to work, and they had regular health checks by a board-certified physician every 2 weeks. The cost to actually register was $5, and each check was 50 cents. So they had to actually be checked, and that's why this all was, happening. At the same time, Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. had been reduced to, quote, a slum, and was called Murder Bay due to the extensive criminal activity. There were a ton of sex workers in the area because they were there to serve the need of General Joseph Hooker's Army of the Potomac. We discussed.
What did I say?
Well, I said we discussed this and where the term hooker came from in our episode on the
But I knew that beforehand too.
The area changed its name to
smart.
The area changed its name to the Hooker Division, and the 2 blocks between Pennsylvania Avenue and Missouri Avenue was known as Marble Alley due to the expensive brothels that took up residence there.
Nice.
In 1873, Anthony Comstock created the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice. This was an institution dedicated to supervising the morality of the public. Okay. How'd that go for you? Interesting. Comstock successfully influenced the United States Congress to pass the Comstock Law, which made the delivery of obscene, lewd, or lascivious material and any information about birth control illegal. So you could not deliver any obscene material, but you also couldn't give out any information on birth control. It was illegal. So thanks for that. I won't start. In 1875, Congress passed the Page Act of 1875 that made it illegal to transport women into the United States to be used as sex workers. In 1881, the Birdcage Theater opened in Tombstone, Arizona. Oh, guys, this was an interesting one. It included a brothel in the basement and 14 crib-like structures suspended from the ceiling called cages, which is how it got its name.
Oh, my.
Local men, such as Doc Holliday, Bat Masterson, Diamond Jim Brady, and George Hurst, frequented the birdcage.
I'm your huckleberry.
Around 1890, the term red light district was first recorded in the United States in a paper from Sandusky, Ohio, actually. For those not aware, another name for the red light district is the pleasure district.
Ooh.
This is where generally a wide variety of adult entertainment is available. The name actually comes from the red lights that were used as signs for a brothel. The title for longest running brothel in the United States.
Is it in Montana?
It's in Montana, yes.
Look at me. I know trivia.
It belonged to the Dumas brothers, and it was called the Dumas Brothel in Butte, Montana.
Yep.
It was open from 1890 to 1982.
Do you know why I knew that?
Why?
Because my senior year.
Everyone is curious.
I know. My senior year,
Mm-hmm.
I went on a mission trip to Butte, Montana.
Well, it apparently turned into a museum. I'm a little disappointed you didn't go. Anyways.
Well, I mean, I was kind of on a
It's fine.
Baptist girls
It's fine.
mission trip, so not a place that we would have gone.
I mean, I would have.
No.
When it closed, it was described as, quote, a rare, intact commentary on social history. So, given kind of some of the laws that I'm going to have to bring us down for just a few minutes. And there's a reason. There's a complete reason for it, because I cannot discuss this. We did talk about the Page Act of 1875 that made it illegal to transport women into the nation for the use of sex work. I cannot bring that up without discussing something extremely important that is extremely important to me and should be extremely important to everyone, honestly. I want to shed light on it. It's a major issue in the United States and around the world, and that is sex trafficking.
Yes.
Sex trafficking, for those not aware, is a form of human trafficking which involves reproductive slavery or commercial sexual exploitation.
And is despicable.
It also includes the transportation of persons by means of coercion, deception, and or force into exploitive and slavery-like conditions. It's commonly associated with organized crime as well.
And is despicable.
It has been estimated that 2/3 of trafficking victims in the United States are U.S. citizens. Most victims who are born outside of the United States do come into the United States legally on various visas. But many times, once the women are brought in with a visa, it's taken from them and they're forced into sex work. The State Department estimates that between 15,000 and 50,000 women and girls are trafficked each year in the United States. So, in saying that,
makes me so angry.
I want, like I said, I like to shed light on, we both do. We like to shed light on social issues that are a major problem, that do need more attention and do need to be discussed. And with this being said, if this is ever a situation that you are in, these are just a few red flags to look out for. If you see someone and you believe that they might be in a position where they are being sexually trafficked. And these are just kind of different things that, you can see and kind of be like, okay, this is an issue. What I'm thinking could be true. If the person seems overly fearful, submissive, tense, or paranoid, if the person is deferring to another before giving any information, if the person has physical injuries or branding, such as name tattoos on their face or chest, tattoos about money or sex, or any inappropriate, phrases. That's not just to say that. It's combined with a lot of other things as well, just to say. Clothing is inappropriately sexual or inappropriate for the weather. I didn't think about that, but inappropriate for the weather.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really...
exploiting their body.
That one I didn't never think of, but that's, yes.
It's 45 degrees outside and they're still wearing basically nothing.
Nothing, yeah. Mm-hmm. If a minor is unaccompanied at night or falters in giving any explanation of who they are with and what they are doing, that's a possibility as well. If their identification documents are held by another person. Mm-hmm. If the person works long or excessive hours or is always available on demand. If they were overly sexual for their age or the situation, if they have multiple phones or multiple social media accounts across different platforms, that's also kind of like a red flag. Signs of unusual wealth without explanation, new jewelry, shoes, phones, without any known forms of income. That can also be a way of doing that. And if a person lives in a, quote, massage business, or if they are not free to come and go as they please. And typically it's not a quote massage business. Typically the way they get around it is they just call it a spa. You cannot say massage, which I learned this from the Jensen and Holes podcast, Murder Squad. And something else that I'm about to bring up was also something that I read with them. But if they say massage in the name, you legally have to have a massage therapist license.
Okay.
And so they have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
If the word spa is specifically the only thing in the name, that is how it can be,
you can work around it.
Yes. So anyways, just to be on the lookout of that. There was a shooting in the last year that was in Georgia that targeted several places such as that it was assumed, I don't know for sure if it was said, but it was assumed that it was kind of an operation similar to that. So if you believe you have seen or know anyone involved, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. Or you can text the word help or info to 233-722. However, if you believe that the person or persons are in immediate danger, you need to immediately call 911 and let them know of the situation, because it is very easy for someone who is trafficking someone else to take them and they will not be recognized again. They can change their hair color. They can do a lot of different things. It's very, they
can get them to another location very quickly.
And you can lose who they are. I mean, it's just something else. However, this is something, if you travel a lot, this is something that everybody needs to do right now. Like right now. There is an app on, I think it's pretty much in every app store now, but it's called Traffic, like traffic spelled normally with a K at the end, and then Cam, C-A-M. So it's called Traffic Cam. And the description that was actually on the app said it best. So I'm just going to read what it says. Traffic Cam enables you to help combat sex trafficking by uploading photos of hotel rooms you stay in when you travel. Traffickers regularly post photographs of their victims posed in hotel rooms for online advertisement. These photographs are evidence that can be used to find and prosecute the perpetrators of these crimes. In order to use these photos, however, investigators must be able to determine where the photos were taken. The purpose of Traffic Cam is to create a database of hotel room images that an investigator can efficiently search in order to find other images that were taken in the same location or an image that is a part of an investigation, which I never thought of. Mm-hmm. But it's this app, and you literally, all you do is you go into your hotel room. You have to do it in the app, but you just go into your hotel room and you do like one sweep of what your hotel room looks like. And then it asks you, what hotel this is. And so you put in what hotel it is. And that information is uploaded to a database just to say, like, this is this hotel room. This is what this looks like. And then I think they have somebody who kind of like catalogs it and breaks it down. And it's like, what's in the room, what looks, because, some will say like, that's a very specific wallpaper.
Right.
What hotel would that have been at? What city are we in? Okay, well, we know there's only one of these hotels in this city. So this person had to have been here. Mm-hmm. So we need to go. So they've actually been pretty successful, and it's been very helpful for a lot of investigations. So if you are someone who does travel a lot, please download that app and go in there. And all you do is just go into your hotel room. You do a quick, just little picture photo sweep of the room, upload it, and you're done. Like, that's all you have to do. And you could, it truly could save someone's life. So
and how awesome to be a part of that.
And at the same time, how sad it is that we have to have something like that.
Oh,
it's
despicable.
It is.
I can't say that enough. There's not a word strong enough to adequately describe how I feel about it.
Exactly.
It's like it's slavery. It's slavery.
Oh, it is, and it's.
I don't understand it.
It is it's frustrating. It's angering. It is. For a lot of people who don't know, y'all do know that we are in Alabama, and there's an interstate that goes from Birmingham to Atlanta. It's called I-20, and it is known as one of the most heavily used ways to get someone, because Atlanta has an international airport. It's the easiest way to get someone out of the country. So I-20, they say for a lot of women, like if you're there, like be safe. If you stop anywhere, just be aware, like keep your head on a swivel. Men too, men and anyone can be sex trafficked if they are, vulnerable enough. So it's not just women, even though it is women more likely.
Primarily, but
we do understand men and boys can also have that happen to them as well. So it's just to say, like, keep your head on a swivel, make sure, just be aware of your surroundings. I mean, but had to just throw that in there. We haven't come across anything kind of close to that. And typically, like we did in our episode where we discussed suicide and I put all the information in there, I am going to put all of this information in the show notes. So like I said, just scroll up and the information, the telephone number, the text message number, and the name of the app will be in the show notes. So if you see anything like that, one of the best things that I've heard is if you see something, say something. It's better to be safe than sorry.
You got me all wound up and angry now.
So if you see something, say something. But our case today revolves around Helen Jewett, who was actually born Dorcas Doyen.
Dorcas is actually a Bible character.
Dorcas.
But bless it. Because, we had two groups. And on one of my mission trips, it was Dorcas and Dora. And I was in Dorcas. And I was like, so we're all dorks. Okay, thanks. Dorcas.
She was born in Temple, Maine. Her family was in the working class. And her dad was allegedly a raging alcoholic.
Allegedly.
Her mother died when she was young, and at the age of 12, when her father remarried, she was sent out to service. Not in the way that you're thinking.
Yeah, but in other words, I'm the new woman of the house, and I'm going to need you to get out.
So she was sent as a servant to the home of one of the chief justices of the Maine Supreme Judicial Court. All of this, of course, with an agreement that she could leave when she was 18. Supposedly, the family she went to serve raised her as more of a child than, as a servant. However, it's also alleged that the judge she was serving slept with her at the age of 16 or 17.
Nice.
The details of the seduction are not clear, but the act appeared to be consensual. I don't know. When the story became public, the judge had to do something, and though she was only 17, she was set free, and they said she was 18 to end her service so she could leave.
Bye.
This freed the judge from having to take any action against anything, and it allowed her to go away on her own. So Helen immediately took off and moved to Portland. I'm calling her Helen because everywhere calls her Helen. Like, even though that was not her birth name, everywhere calls her Helen, and it's just much easier for the story.
And that's what she preferred to be called, apparently. Maybe not.
We'll see.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Helen Jewett is the name she went by when she got to New York City, and she started working for Rosina Townsend at an upscale brothel. Oh, this is where... Just kidding, I skipped one. She made her way to Boston and then ended in New York. And that's why I said her name changed in each city.
Oh.
Which is why I mentioned that was her birth name. And then by the time she got to New York City, her name was Helen Jewett. But she was changing it every time she moved.
Oh.
So, unsure of why, but she did.
Well, she didn't like the first one, so she changed it. I mean, life on the run.
I mean, I'd probably change mine if it were that too. But anyways,
I mean,
so she started working for Rosina Townsend at an upscale brothel. It said that she was more of a courtesan than a common sex worker. So she was more of like an escort.
Okay.
Which...
She was a fun-time girl.
I mean... Anyways, her clients included successful lawyers, merchants, and politicians who viewed their relationships with her almost as romances, with rendezvous and exchanges of gifts and letters. But her favorite client was a man who went by the name of Frank Rivers. This, of course, wasn't his name.
Shocker.
But Helen called him Pretty Frank due to his strikingly good looks. His name was actually Richard P. Robinson, and he was an 18-year-old clerk at a local dry goods store. The two started corresponding even when he wasn't there for services. But Richard hated her profession, and soon Helen began to threaten to humiliate him by telling others that he had been seeing her. 3 days before the murder, Helen sent him a letter trying to reconcile. However, she closed the letter by saying, quote, "You have known how I loved. Do not provoke the experiment of seeing how I can hate."
Oh,
I mean, girl.
She just threw that gauntlet down.
Do not provoke the experiment of seeing how I can hate.
She said, I am not the one.
That is like, that's a line right there.
I mean,
that is, I said what I said, and I said what I said, so don't ask what I said.
I mean,
that is, she's...
Don't try me.
However, Richard was a bit brave, and he responded in his letter saying, quote, "You are never so foolish as when you threaten me. Keep quiet until I come on Saturday night, and then we will see if we cannot be better friends hereafter."
He said, bet.
In the early mornings of Sunday, April 10th, 1836, Rosina Townsend, as I said before, she was the brothel owner, was awoken by someone banging on her door. Through the door, she heard a man's voice asking to be let out of the front door because it was locked. This is all important. It all ties back. So, Rosina yelled back, "Get your woman to let you out."
Mm-hmm.
There were 9 women who lived in the house, and one of the house rules was that after midnight, the front door would be locked. And this lock was a lock from the inside and outside, so you had to have a key to get out.
Gotcha. And everybody that lived there had a key?
No, there was only one key.
Oh.
So like I said, the rule was that if anybody needed to get out, then they would need to be escorted to the door specifically. It wasn't uncommon for some men to spend the night, but if they ever decided to leave, they wouldn't ever need Rosina because one of the women would let them out, right? So they wouldn't come to wake her up. This was odd because after the banging on her door, none of the women living there ever slipped into Rosina's room to get the key. So Rosina fell back asleep, and she was entertaining a male visitor of her own who apparently never awoke to any of the commotion. All right. She was awoken.
Just like a man.
I mean, she was awoken again around 3 a.m. All right. To someone knocking on the outside of the main door, so the front door, insinuating that it's still locked.
Right.
Okay. It was a regular customer who was serviced by Elizabeth Salters. Rosina let the man in, and he slinked upstairs to Elizabeth's room, and Rosina's lantern no longer saw him. But as all of this occurred, she noticed something wasn't quite right. There was a globe lantern sitting on a marble-topped table in the parlor, and it was lit. This was odd because the lantern had a twin, and they both belonged to another room on the second floor. She walked towards the lantern and saw the door to the garden slightly opened. The back garden had a continuous fence around it that was around 8 to 12 feet high.
Just a little fence.
Rosina also had pickets installed at the top to avoid any intruders. A few years earlier, Rosina had 3 men climb over the fence and barge into the house, yelling at everyone, looking to start a fight. So she put that up there to ensure that no one would come over them again. But no one was out in the garden. She went to her room again and sat down, but she grew concerned about the lantern. So she went back to the door. She shut and barred it before she headed upstairs to the second floor. She checked Maria Stevens. It was locked, as it should have been. Maria had an overnight guest and always locked her door in these instances, so her door should be locked. Rosina went to the back bedroom on the other side and checked the door. It was unlocked. She pushed the door open and smoke came pouring out of the room.
Uh-oh.
She ran to Caroline Stewart's room, which was on the front corner of the house, and yelled fire. Needless to say, it wasn't long until the entire house was awake. Help arrived, and in the meantime, Caroline and Rosina ran into Helen's room to try and save her and her guest. But what they saw sent them running back out in horror.
She did.
Yeah, but it gets worse.
Oh, dear.
The bed was smoldering from the fire, and Helen was dead. Her green dress had burned off of her, and half of her body was charred to the point that it did not resemble skin.
Oh, yuck.
There were 3 gash marks on her head, and the bed was reduced to a pool of blood beneath her. It was clear that Helen was murdered, and her companion who joined her that night was nowhere to be found.
Oh, no.
Once the authorities were there and they were putting out the fire, one noticed a handkerchief under Helen's pillow with a man's name on it, and he put it in his pocket. The police checked the backyard, which seemed the likely escape route since the front door was locked. Nearby the fence was a hatchet, and on the other side lay a long cloak. The coroner's inquest was made, and it was discovered that the murder likely happened after midnight. Helen had been struck 3 times on the head, likely with a hatchet. And based on the position of her body in the bed, she was not expecting it. No signs of a struggle were noted, and when Helen had been knocked out, the murderer set the mattress on fire and left. Police questioned Rosina Townsend. She recounted the previous night's events. Helen had asked her not to admit one of the men who was a Saturday night regular, that another client would visit her instead. When the man arrived, he covered his face with a cloak.
Oh, the cloak that was found outside.
But Rosina recognized him as one of Helen's longtime clients, Richard P. Robinson. Earlier that morning, police found Richard asleep in his home. They arrested him and rushed him to the scene, which was common at this time.
Right.
Officers were, quote, amazed to note his composure and impassivity upon his viewing of Helen's body. Later on, Richard said to a neighbor, quote, do you think I would blast my brilliant prospects by so ridiculous an act? I am a young man of only 19 years of age as of yesterday with most brilliant prospects.
Oh.
So remember how this is one of the first sex scandals to receive detailed press reporting?
Oh, dear.
Well, this is the type of reporting that came to be known as sensational journalism.
Mm-hmm.
The penny press had just started, and the murder of Helen made for great entertainment for people to buy a paper to follow along. Reporters noted the scraps of green dress that Helen had on her body as she was brought out, and this is how she received her nickname as the girl in green. Any and all tiny bit of information regarding Helen, Richard, or the murder was published, and often the information wasn't very reliable.
Yeah.
As competing newspapers were trying to get their news out first for more salacious sales. Moreover, the reporters were picking sides. They were either sympathizing with Helen and hating Richard, or they were attacking Helen as a seductress who deserved her fate. Okay. The New York Herald, which we discussed last week, which was edited by James Gordon Bennett Sr., provided the most complete coverage of the sensational murder, even though it was extremely biased. Almost from the beginning and throughout the trial, Bennett insisted that Richard was the innocent victim of a vicious conspiracy launched by the police and Helena's madam, Rosina Townsend. He also emphasized the sensational nature of the story and worked to exploit the sexual, violent details of Helen's death. Then remember I told you the New York Sun would come back. So The New York Sun's readers tend to come from a working class. So they argued that Richard was guilty and that he was able to use money and the influence of wealthy relatives and his employer to buy himself an acquittal. This theory continued to gain traction for many years after.
Many years.
Some historians even credited Bennett with the first journalistic interview, which was of Rosina Townsend. Other historians argue that Bennett never actually talked to Rosina at all and that his reported interview with Rosina was all a hoax.
Oh.
This case became national news, and for the first time, reporters from other cities came to cover a New York City murder trial.
Huh.
Most notably, the trial was largely responsible for these changes in approach to sex and scandal coverage by American journalists nationwide. Prior to this case, the coverage of these topics by major newspapers was practically non-existent.
Huh.
A movement started in the city with the young men who sympathized with Richard. Anyways.
Sympathized with him.
They said that men should not be subject to threats from sex workers. They expressed their support by wearing black cloaks similar to the one worn by Richard. I just put in parentheses, real classy, guys. In protest of their protest, the women wanting to see Helen's killer punished wore...
Oh dear.
I forgot this word was in here. They wore white beaver caps trimmed with black crepe. Totally forgot that word was in here. I wonder
if
if
they have any muffs.
I wonder.
Do they have matching muffs for the hats?
I'm wondering if this white beaver fur came from a bipedal tailless beaver, because we could be on to something of what happened to our friend.
I just want to know if they had matching muffs. That's all I want to know.
You know they did. You know they did.
See episode 1, guys, if you don't know.
In more than one way. Moving on. Oh, gosh. The trial began on June 2nd of 1836. And evidence against Richard was circumstantial and had the easy ability to be countered by the defense.
Okay, so wait. They wore black capes
before the trial.
Yeah, they wore black capes in support of Richard.
Yes, saying that they should not be privy to the threats of sex workers.
In support of Richard.
Yes, of Richard.
Like he wore.
Yes.
Before the trial.
Allegedly.
Okay, continue.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just throwing that out there. Okay.
Gosh. And the women wore white beaver hats.
With matching muffs.
For the woman who was a high-paid escort.
I mean...
I can't. Anyways. So, like I said, all the evidence was circumstantial and had the easy ability to be countered by the defense. The prosecution was not allowed to enter Richard's diary into evidence.
What?
They were only allowed one letter from the volume of incriminating correspondence between Richard and Helen.
That's crap. That's crap.
After days of testimony from several witnesses, including Rosina Townsend, the judge gave the jury their instructions.
Were they
as most
come back with a not guilty verdict because I like the guy?
As most of the witnesses were other sex workers, the judge ordered the jury to disregard their testimony because they were untrustworthy.
Because they were they were classless citizens.
In his,
yes.
And I just put in parentheses, people are garbage. The jury deliberated for a mere 30 minutes. 30. Richard Robinson received a verdict of
not guilty.
You guessed it. Richard's supporters could be heard cheering outside of the courtroom when the verdict was read. Interestingly, after leaving the courtroom, a friend of Richard's was seen giving an envelope to one of the jurors.
Oh, jury tampering?
What is that? Well, whether or not Richard killed Helen is still not completely known. Although most people...
It's not? Really?
I'm just saying, by law. Although most people speculate, of course, that he did. The personal letters between Helen and Richard became public after the trial. And they undercut some of his claims and showed him to be capable of vicious and deviant sexual behavior.
Shocking.
The public turned against him, including some who had been his supporters cheering for him on the day of his verdict. Weirdly enough, right after the trial, he moved to Texas.
What? He left town?
2 years after the murder, he died of a fever.
Oh, was it related to VD?
I don't think so. Just me. Those around him, when he died, said that on his deathbed, he only kept repeating one thing.
I did it. I'm a crook.
It was her name, Helen Jewett. And that is the story of the Girl in Green, a.k.a. Helen Jewett, who never received any justice.
And the man who killed her.
Oh, gosh.
That was a low-down, rotten, dirty.
I mean...
What else can we say?
I mean, I could say a few things, but...
Well, keep it PG.
I mean... Anyways. So...
That ain't cool.
You're not going to find a bipedal tailless beaver on our website, but you could. Not that kind. And it's my drag name. Anywho,
that one caught me by surprise.
I mean,
you know what?
Don't Google that. Do not Google that.
When we do have merch, we're gonna have to have muffs.
I know.
We're gonna have muffs.
I know.
We're gonna have to.
Oh gosh. Please let it be a shirt that just says "I love a good muff," and then it's a photo of like an actual hand warmer muff or sweatshirts.
Oh,
and your hands
with
go
the kangaroo pocket. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
We got it. All right. So
a brainstorming session done.
No bipedal tailless beavers on our website, but you can go find it at onenationundercrime.com. Do not Google tailless bipedal beaver. I don't know what you'll find. So we are One Nation Under Crime anywhere and everywhere. Just go find us. I give up. I can't.
They must just keep cropping up on us. Whoa, that was bad.
All right. We gotta go.
Edit that out.
No, it's staying in. Go leave us a 5-star review and drop something in about a beaver or a muff you like.
Don't. We've had enough.
If you care to. That's up to you.
Don't.
So thank you guys.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
For listening to this week's episode of One Nation Under Crime.
We're sorry.
We will see you here. Same time.
Different crime.
Different muff. Next week.
Stop it. We're going to go blonde.
And remember. Dude, I can't. All right. And remember.
There's not always
liberty and justice for all. Especially if you're a bipedal tailless beaver.
Goodbye.
See you guys next week.
Adios.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening to True Crime by Indie Drop-In Network. If you would like to nominate a true crime podcast to be featured, just send me a tweet at Indie Drop-In. I'd also love to hear if one of our featured podcasts is now your favorite show. Indie Drop-In survives off ad revenue and listener donations. If you would like to contribute, please consider buying me a coffee. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/Indie Drop-In. If you look at the very bottom of the episode description, I put a link in there to make it really easy. Indie Drop-In has many other shows that you also might like. Just go to indiedropin.com. All right, see you next week.